Thank you, Ambassador. Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple points. First, I want to second the chairman's comments about the programs we've had in place to help feed hungry people around the world. I think they really do advance our own interests as well as prevent starvation. I'm still upset that they blew up AID, but I look forward to finding ways to get that help around the world until we get AID back at some point. Second, I do want to emphasize the point Senator Reid made, which builds on my earlier point about I don't think we should be compromising our national security to advance a trade agreement. And I do believe that the decision the other day to allow NVIDIA to send the H200 chips to China undermines our national security. And we had a hearing in another committee recently that talked about the dangers of undoing the rule, the affiliates rule that we discussed during my earlier question. So I just hope that we can work on those issues going forward. With respect to the $12 billion and the $28 billion during the last administration. I mean, you agree that this is the cost to America of the trade war with China, right? I mean, that tab is being picked up by American taxpayers in one form.
Well, China has weaponized trade with the United States. You know, last year Congress appropriated $10 billion for farmers because they had, a large crop. This year they had a large crop. So, for better or for worse, this body will occasionally appropriate money to take care of these issues.
Just, Mr. Ambassador, it was a simple question, right? In the first Trump administration, U.S. taxpayers put up $28 billion. I don't know, the chairman's chart's missing, because of the surplus agricultural produce that we didn't export to China, right?
If China targets our farmers, we're going to take care of them, and we're not going to sit down while China does everything. I know people want the status quo; they want to trade with China and be dependent.
Mr. Ambassador,
but we don't accept
it. So here's I'm looking at a chart from the American Farm Bureau, and back in 2018, during the first Trump trade negotiations, obviously our exports for soybeans took a huge hit. Now they're taking a big hit now. My only point is that American taxpayers are footing the bill for that, now $12 billion. And so then the question is, what do we get for it, right? What does China give? And I know during the first Trump administration, one of the things they committed to, supposedly, was increased imports of American goods. But it's a fact, is it not, that they only made good on 59% of the purchases promised.
And Senator, you and I both know it's because President Biden refused to enforce the agreement. He refused. The first year of that agreement, the Chinese purchased more ag than they had in years and years, and President Biden refused to enforce it.
Mr. Ambassador, this was the promise they made while Trump was back in office during those terms. So you're saying that while President Trump was in office in his first term, China complied with the agreement to purchase those goods.
They were compliant. They had their highest purchases of ag.
If you look at a chart, you'll see that they
and President Biden just laid down and let them do whatever they wanted.
Actually, President Biden, as you know, kept the tariffs on. So let's go to...
I credit him for that. I credit him for that.
Well, I mean, he kept the tariffs on, so he didn't lay down and get rolled over. The reality is that China didn't fulfill its commitments under the previous agreement negotiated by the Trump administration. And I don't know what the Trump administration was prepared to do about it. I don't know what you're prepared to do if they don't follow through on the 12 million metric tons. But here's a question on the Japan deal, because we hear these grand announcements, right, after these deals about commitments countries have made. I just want to make sure I understand the commitment on the Japan deal, because Japan, as you know, already is the largest foreign investor in the United States, right? $819 billion, I'm told, as of last year, Japanese companies have invested in the United States, $819 billion.
They're a large investor. The Koreans told me they were bigger last year, but I'll credit you. They're a huge investor.
So I want to make sure I understand. You're saying that under the new Japan trade deal, Japan's committed to invest another $550 billion in the United States before the end of President Trump's term. Is that correct?
That's what they've committed to do. That's right.
So you're saying that by the end of the term, they're going to be up to $1.3 trillion.
They will invest an additional $550 billion over the next 3 years.
I mean, we don't know what they would have invested anyway in addition to that, but it'll be interesting to see how we monitor that. So how are we going to monitor that? I've been reading about through this EO, this special, task force that's going to be set up, and then after these Japanese companies or investors, get their full principal returned, the United States government is going to get 90% of the profits. Is that right?
The Commerce Department is monitoring and implementing those investment commitments. At USTR, we're not doing that. If the Commerce Department reports to us that they're not compliant, then we can look at, seeing if the deal needs to hold. But it needs to be monitored. I agree with you.
Well, you guys cut the deal, right?
The Commerce Department was quite focused on the investment piece of this.
Okay.
I'm focused on tariffs, non-tariff barriers.
Okay. We look forward to it. I hope the chairman will agree that, if we're going to go make these statements about what these agreements are going to produce for the American people, it is very important that we hold them accountable for those purposes. In the interest of time, I'm not going to ask the questions directly about your role, office, also as the head of the Office of Special Counsel, but I would request that you and your team answer some questions for the record, because if you're willing to.
We're happy to do so. Yes, sir.
Thank you.